Welcome. I'm Dr. Billie Jones Pierce, Assistant Professor of English and Director of the TREC First Year Program. It's my privilege to welcome you to the 34th Corrington Award ceremony. First, I'd like to mention the music you heard as you entered was selected by first-year TREC students. They were asked to choose a song in conversation with stories from Maurice Ruffin's collection, The Ones Who Say They Don't Love You, Who Don't Say They Love You, I'm sorry. The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You. Let's give the students a hand. At this time, I'll ask that you silence your cell phones and other devices. I'll also take this opportunity while you're digging around in your bags to remind students that there are passport points available for this event. There are QR codes to scan in the lobby on your way out. The John William Corrington Award for Literary Excellence is presented annually by the English Department on behalf of the student body and faculty to an established, critically acknowledged writer. It is the brainchild of Dr. David Havard, Emeritus Professor of English, who hosted the event for around 20 years. We are excited to continue that legacy, and we are also lucky enough to have Dr. Havard and his wife Ashley in the audience tonight. Let's give them a hand. In 1991, Eudora Welty became the first recipient of the Corrington Award. Other recipients have included Amy Nezuka-Matato, Jericho Brown, Ruth Ozeki, Percival Everett, Yusef Kamanyaka, and James Dickey. The award honors Centenary alumnus and English major Bill Corrington, who was an English professor, an attorney in private practice, and, with his wife Joyce, the writer for several television series, including Search for Tomorrow and General Hospital, my grandmother's favorite. A prolific writer, Corrington published poetry, several novels, and 3 collections of short stories. The Corrington Award is generously supported by the Corrington family and the Attaway Professorships in Civic Culture. Many people worked together to ensure this ceremony could happen tonight. There are too many to name, but I hope you'll look at the acknowledgments section of your program. We also have some other special guests here tonight. I'd like to welcome our emeritus faculty, including Dr. Steve Shelburne, the president of the college, Dr. Christopher Holloman, and our First Lady, Connie Holloman, the vice president for academic affairs and provost, Dr. Karen Soule, and the Centenary Muses. We should give all of these folks a round of applause. If you aren't familiar with the Muses, they are a women's philanthropic organization dedicated to enhancing the campus experience for Centenary students. The group is named after the Muses of Greek mythology, who are patrons of the arts. The Muses host annually the beloved Book Bazaar entirely on a volunteer basis. Proceeds benefit the college and over the years have totaled more than $1 million. This work makes a lasting impact on the Centenary community, and we are grateful for their continued support and dedication. Here to host this year's ceremony and to introduce the rest of our performers are 2 members of the English department and my good friends, Dr. Rachel Johnson and Dr. Chrissy Martin.
Rachel Johnson.
And I'm Dr. Chrissy Martin.
You know, Dr. Martin, I really like your pantsuit.
Rachel, this is embarrassing because one of us is going to have to change.
You think they can't tell us apart? Or?
I think we look pretty similar.
Yeah, well, okay. I think maybe I'm going to tweak my look.
Well, I'm in my trouser era. One of my students told me that, so.
Okay, cool. Well, you're in your trouser era.
I am.
I see some other folks took our invitation and dressed their best tonight. So I see my colleague Kevin Porter is rocking a tie this evening.
Oh, nice.
Friend.
Gigi Malloy in that emerald dress. What a beautiful gown. What a beautiful gown.
And I saw some velvet. I believe Jessica Hawkins is rocking a velvet blazer. Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of velvet in this room.
Mhm. Well, y'all, we have some fabulous photographers here tonight. Our marketing department, Shannon Williams is here. And Chris Jackson's out in the lobby taking some free professional photographs. So you should visit them. Chris is a 2024 graduate from Centenary, and he was an English major and a star basketball player. Chris has recently returned to Centenary as our assistant women's basketball coach. And you should make sure you stop by and get photos of your fits.
Photos of your what?
You know, the fits. It's what the kids are saying.
Did your students say that too?
Yeah.
We are delighted to host tonight's event. This evening, we are honoring distinguished fiction writer Maurice Carlos Ruffin. Let's give him a round of applause. In February, I was fortunate enough to see Maurice perform live. While he was on stage with a handful of other people, I was captivated by him. His infectious joy, his off-the-cuff humor, and his ability to spin a beautiful tale, even in casual moments. You know, Rachel, don't tell Maurice, but I think my favorite thing about seeing him live was watching him walk on stage with a tote bag that said, Maurice Carlos Ruffin, famous author.
I think he might have heard you. But maybe you should get one of those too.
Don't tell me that because I will listen.
Well, I also admire Maurice, and I first read his work when I picked up a copy of his debut novel on a trip to New Orleans. I went to the Community Book Center on Bayou Road, and I loved reading We Cast a Shadow with my colleagues at the University of Mississippi when Maurice was the writer, the John Grisham writer in residence back in 2020, 2021. So I know we didn't spend a lot of time in person, but it was wonderful to read your work, to get to know you then. I also got to reread We Cast a Shadow with some students who I know are here tonight. If you were part of the Corrington Book Club, but you know, the Corrington isn't the only award that Maurice has won or been nominated for. He's also the recipient of prestigious prizes such as the 2023 Louisiana Writer Award, the Black Rock Senegal Residency, and the Iowa Review Award in Fiction. He's a New Orleans native and was even the 2022 Grand Marshal of the Mardi Gras crew of House Floats. Maurice, we're so happy to have you tonight, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Later in the ceremony, Maurice will read his work and answer questions from the audience. But first, we have two amazing performances from students directly inspired by and in conversation with his work. Our first performance tonight is a theatrical adaptation of Maurice's short story, Catch What You Can, from his collection, The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You. This adaptation was created and cast by Channing Hall and Emma Greer.
You know, fun fact, Emma, Channing, and the rest of the theater department put on a play on this very stage 1 week ago, Ovid's Metamorphoses.
Yeah.
Did anyone see the show?
Woo! It was good.
It was a great performance, and I love that they had a full pool on the stage.
Yeah, it meant that I could go for a nice dip right before the performance.
Well, I thought you couldn't swim, Chrissy.
It's shallow.
It's shallow.
And cold.
All right, so I want to introduce our performers. Channing Hall is a political science and theater double major from Baton Rouge. Her theater focuses are acting, directing, and costume design. And Emma Greer is an English and theater double major from Minden, Louisiana. She loves crocheting, reading, and going to the movies.
Channing and Emma said the following about this performance. We approached our adaptation in a straightforward way. Our first priority was telling a story without taking away from the power of the language already written. We hope our theatrical version of Maurice's short story will build on his foundation while also invoking the unique experience of live theater.
Friends, please welcome to the stage Channing Hall, Emma Greer, Dylan Benson, and the Rivertown Players.
Mama say, you gotta help her quit drinking for good this time. She promised $5 whole bucks a bottle of booze you find around the place you live. You find an empty cracker box and another wrapped in a plastic toilet tank. You find 9 whole bottles. You're going to be rich. The bottle hunt is payback for what Mama owes you. Yesterday, she raided your dresser drawer and takes your grass cutting money, a couple rolls of $1 bills, to the time saver and buys booze. Some people buy gum or cinnamon toothpicks every time they go. She gets whiskey. She says she must have dropped the rest of your money coming out of the store. No telling with her. You don't care what happened. You just want your money.
Put what you find on the counter in the kitchen.
Mama sit at the vanity you pulled from the dumpster. Papa always says people foolhardy go to casting off of valuable property. Papa himself found a silver money clip by the manager's office. He gave it to you. Mama jabbed her cheek with the brush that looks like a squirrel's tail.
I didn't think there'd be a whole party's worth of alcohol.
Thought there'd be a lot more, you say?
Thought there'd be more. You a funny one.
Mama stands and pinches your cheek.
At least my period over.
Ugh. A nasty taste washed up the back of your throat. You'll never understand how Mama wasn't born with the part that keeps other people from saying shit like that.
Oh, my baby, you must be hungry.
Don't call me that. It don't sound right.
Still my baby.
Mama smiles big. You ain't her baby. The fridge empty. The pantry's empty except for Mama's nasty ass sardines. Your stomach's empty. You're trying to be the richest 4th grader at Fannie C. Williams Elementary. You're trying to eat.
We'll give you something to eat out.
Mama smooths her skirt. Out, you say. Where are you going?
I'm going to get me a job. The only way I'm going to quit drinking that stuff is if I find something to do. You coming with me?
No, I ain't. I got money to make, yards to cut. Papa says summertime in New Orleans is a grass cutter's dream.
I need you with me.
You can't work. You'll lose that government money you just got.
So I went most of my life without it. I can do that again.
It ain't bright to give up free money.
Welfare making me sick.
You think being broke making you both sick. Mama swerves the station wagon onto the highway ramp. Your mower rattle in the back. You want to bring it into the apartment for safekeeping because people be stealing anything that isn't hidden from sight. But Mama says it's too rusty. It's Papa's mower. But he lets you use it. Mama says you're too young to be cutting grass. But do you think she knows what you're too young for? No.
Say you proud of me.
You're proud of me, you say. Mama covers her mouth and laughs that chirpy laugh she got. Makes you laugh too, even though you wasn't trying to. This ain't the first time she talked about cleaning up. Ain't the first mention of a paying gig. Last time she lasted a week at a gas station before they fired her for drinking up the beer. You gonna get a job that pays a lot?
It ain't so much about the money. If you always fret about money, that makes you ugly inside.
Your heart beats in your cheek. What not Mama know about anything anyway? It ain't like you trying to buy Adidas tennis shoes. You're doing what Papa says do. You making money like you're supposed to. Where are we going, you say?
In town. I'm giving you a job at the sundry shop, the one by the Superdome. They sell your candy there too.
The news people says things closing up in town.
A little faith, son.
Podger Street runs down the middle of town. Mama and you ride in the shadow of the skyscrapers. Mama parks her by the brown and black building that looks like a tall man in a suit. We can't park here, you say.
Say who?
You point at the no stopping sign.
Oh boy, they ain't gonna mess with this car now.
Mama and you walk to the sundry shop a couple blocks from where the car is parked. A bunch of cardboard boxes heaped on the sidewalk. Orange closing signs all over the windows. You start to tell Mama you told her so about the store. But you don't like the way she looks. Most of the time she's looking like she's fixing to burst out laughing. Even when nothing's funny going on. Even when she's mad. But that look is gone now.
I guess we too late for this one.
She turned around and watched you digging in one of the cardboard boxes. They full of brand new mugs that says World's Fair.
Quit that.
You look up at her.
Boy, don't cut your eyes on me. We don't go through nobody's trash.
But this is all free stuff. You get a mug and rub it like a genie lamp. We could sell these to people and make some money.
Put that down.
Mama clench your wrists.
We ain't that hard up.
You shake her off and say, look it. There's a place across the street that got windows like mirrors. Mama and you look little in the reflection. You've been there before. They give out jobs, but they didn't help Mama out none. She bit her lip, and you know we have to try them again. That's the only real option. The waiting room full of white folk, everybody in suit and tie, pantsuits and dresses.
Did you bring a book for you to read?
No, you say? You used to read all the time. Mama called you her college boy or little professor because you used to read Miss Zora Neale Hurston and Mr. Ernest Gaines. But you stopped because she don't deserve to congratulate you. The way she messes everything up. She fills out a paper on the clipboard and leaves it on the counter. When Mama turns away, the lady behind the counter wrinkles her face like she got palsy. After a while, the lady in the back who keeps track of the jobs and who keeps calling Mama babe says,
I didn't think you would be back so soon, babe. And all the positions are filled for the day, babe.
There must be something out there.
No, we don't have nothing. Why don't you come back in a month or so, babe?
You think you'll have more jobs in a month?
I don't think nothing.
Mama thank the lady and take you by the hand. You know something ain't right because Mama never pulls you around by the hand since you ain't a baby no more. She stops at the door and stares back at the lady like she wants to say something, but she don't. By noontime, your stomach growls so loud you can both hear it. Mama look like she's about to fall over if you push her with your pinky finger. How about we get McDonald's, you say?
That stuff ain't hardly no good.
We got to eat something.
No, son.
You back on Padre Street, walking towards the river.
I thought we'd parked right about here.
We did. You nod up the street. A white tow truck pulling the station wagon away. It looks like an old man with a sack of potatoes on his shoulder. Mama and you lock eyes, but the way she looks makes your stomach drop. You know she can't afford to get it out from the pound. You know the car is long gone, and probably the cash money she offered earlier too. You know the ride downtown was the last ride in that car, and you know you don't even get to say bye to it. Don't worry about it. Sometimes these things happen for a reason.
You're starting to sound like me. It's not the car I'm worried about, though.
My mower, you suddenly realize. You run up the street, and the tow truck don't slow down none. You turn and look at Mama, standing with one hand on her chest. How are we going to get it back, you say?
I wish I knew.
Mama tries to put her arm around your shoulder, but you spin away before she can wrap you too tight. How am I going to cut people's grass?
We'll get it back.
How?
I'll work it out.
No, you won't, you say, moving out of her embrace. You kick over a garbage can and a red mess spills out. Up and down the street, garbage cans everywhere, and you're thinking that they're filled with red messes. You never work anything out, you say.
It's all right.
No, it ain't, you yell. Nothing's ever all right. We're broke, and now I can't even make money.
That ain't hardly for you to worry about, son.
One of us got to. You ran off the man who used to handle that kind of worrying. Mama pulled back like she's surprised. You think most of the other mamas would slap you a good one for being too frisky. But your mama's never been the type of mama. She root around in her purse, but don't take anything out. She walks towards the French Quarter like she's on a hunt. You follow. Nobody inside Patty Chan's Great Wall restaurant but the people that work there. You don't care because your stomach sounded like a bad dog. A big water tank right inside the door. The tank full of big, dark crawfish.
How much money you have?
You feel bad about what you said to her, so you give her your money clip with no back talk. She checks her purse and says,
We can split Yakuman and a couple of egg rolls.
A man cursed at the water tank. The tank's leaking. Water dribbling into a plastic bucket. No food on the buffet, just empty metal pans.
I guess we can sit wherever we want.
An old lady rolls silverware into a cloth napkin. Mama picks a table by her. The menu's already on the table, trapped under glass.
We should get one.
Mama nods at the tank. Those big crawfish-looking things? You're kidding.
Those are lobsters. And I'm so hungry I could eat anything. But I don't want anything. I want me something nice.
Well, I don't want nobody's sea monster.
I bet you like them. They're a delicacy. Cost a lot.
You had one? She shakes her head. You wish she would lie. You wish she would say she's had lobster one time and it changed her life like a hoodoo spell. The old lady slid from her seat with a dip like she's about to dance. Her red shirt ain't got no collar. Her hair curl like smoke.
We like Yakuman.
No, ma'am, no yakimen.
Egg rolls?
The old lady frowns, but then she smiles.
We have a limited menu. This is our last day.
It seems like such a nice place to be closing.
It was.
The old lady looks around. All you see is cracked paint and those dusty fake flowers on the table that make you want to... The man from the tank walk over and wipe his glasses off his t-shirt.
Did they order?
We was trying, you say, but you ain't got no food.
Don't be rude, Jean.
I like you.
I like me too.
Pick which one. I'll give it to you free. I'm Patty. He's John.
You're grinning like crazy. Mama winks at you. Papa says that you never ever turn down free stuff because most of the time life gives you less than what you have coming to you. So catch what you can. I want me a lobster, you say. John glances back at the water tank. The lobster's just sitting there like they're on break.
Pick one.
You go to the tank. All four of you. Mama put her hands on the glass. One of the lobsters jump at her, and she yells and jump back.
You better do it.
Most of the lobsters hanging out in one corner, but one is all by himself on the side that's leaking. He's bigger than the others. Maybe they're a family and he's the man of the house lobster. That one.
Not that one. He no good.
What's wrong with him?
He injured his thorax.
The lobster creep backwards. It's got a hole in its neck. You say you want that one. John scoops the lobster out with his bare hands. Patty and John go to the back, and a few minutes later, the lobster comes out on a long platter with a cup full of melted butters and some noodles. The lobster splits right down the center, and all you can see is the pink-white meat. You wonder if that's what a brain looks like. But Mama don't move. She's looking off, staring at nothing. You know she's sad. Probably thinking about what you said about Papa. Maybe she's missing him? She ain't eating, so you don't eat. Until after a while, she says,
You're not gonna try any of that lobster? They cooked it special for you and everything.
I changed my mind. I don't want none.
Why?
I shouldn't have said you made Papa go away. Mama takes your hand.
It ain't your fault he's gone, and it ain't mine either. We gonna move on, just you and me, and not think about him.
He ain't coming back?
I don't know, but that's not for us to worry about. That's on him.
Mama reaches in her purse and pulls out a flask, but don't drink. You missed one. The old lady in the corner looking at Mama. But we're family, you say. Family can't forget family.
Sometimes you just gotta roll with what you got. Things will get better. You watch.
You guess her having the flask means the deal is off, that you won't be getting your $5 a bottle? Are you looking surprised? No. You're seeing what you thought you would see. I don't think so, you say. You poke the lobster and it stares back at you. You bet it tastes like one of Mama's nasty-ass, sour sardines. Mama cut a piece of the lobster tail. She dips it in butter and pulls it to her mouth. But she don't bite. She slid her plate over to you. Then she gets up with her purse full of booze. Where are you going?
Bathroom. Wait. Just wait for me.
Steam floats off the lobster's back. You grab Mama's fork. You bring the bite up to your nose. It ain't like what you thought. It smells like honey.
Round of applause for our performers. I gotta say, I'm always so impressed with the amount of talent we have on our campus, and I'm just so proud of our students.
And what a testament to Maurice's work that it inspires such creativity.
Yeah. You know, tonight, our program is in Marjorie and Lyons Playhouse, home to Centenary's theater program. And we want to thank the folks in the theater program who allowed us to host this ceremony between two shows. So thank you, Logan Sledge, if you're here in the room tonight, and also Kennedy Wiltshire, who helped mentor students Mina Went and Glass McManus in designing our set. Let's give them a round of applause.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Kennedy Wiltshire is also an alum of the college, and this is her first year as a faculty member, and she also did the lighting design. So when the English department shared that Maurice would be visiting our campus, we received a wonderful response of collaboration and excitement. And as you entered, you may have seen photography from our student body.
In celebration of Maurice's work, the Learning Commons challenged students to document the places and communities that hold significance for them. As Maurice shows in his work, place is much more than just a physical location. It is a living, breathing thing shaped by the people who inhabit it. We ask for photographs that capture the essence of a place and evoke a deeper understanding of the intersection between location and relationships. We looked for photographers who could make a statement, for images that move us, reveal hidden layers, and explore unexpected connections between the surface of everyday life.
Alyssa Klaus, who is the director of the Meadows Museum of Art, and local landscape photographer Michael Pierce reviewed submissions, and you will see the winning photos in our lobby. Our top 3 winners, and I'm going to call these out, and if you're in the room, would you please stand, were Dominic Benedetto for As the Performer, Isabel Gonzalez for Field or Home, and Zach Baker for Nighttime Road. You'll also find their photos in a special Corrington issue of our campus newspaper, The Conglomerate. Thank you to Editors-in-Chief Jackie DeVille and Ariana Thomas for your work on that special print issue. That issue also includes an interview with Maurice, so you can learn a little bit more about him and his work, and a review of his debut novel by one of the members of the book club. And you know, if you're lucky, maybe Maurice will even sign it for you.
It'll cost you. Our next performer is Kendra Christopher, who you might also know as Kay. Kendra won last year's Corrington Creative Writing Contest for their poem, When I Tell People My Favorite Season is Spring. One of the prizes of that contest was the opportunity to open for this year's Corrington recipient. Kendra is a communication and English double major here at Centenary. They participated in writing and film contests such as the Robbies, and they've been published in Pandora. Kendra also enjoys playing the bass guitar, sketching, and watching movies. I have been lucky enough to have Kay in multiple creative writing classes, and I am continually impressed by their willingness to take creative risks, and it has been an absolute joy to watch their poetic skills grow.
About their reading, Kay said, I've noticed lately that my writing has focused on capturing moments of time, from a brief connection and meeting in others' eyes to differences between several houses and their inhabitants. When I started to read Maurice Carlos Ruffin's books, We Cast a Shadow and The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, I was drawn to and inspired by his ability to capture moments in a way I've been attempting to. I selected these pieces that, through these moments, explore similar themes of people and place. So everyone, please join me in welcoming to the stage Kendra Christopher.
Good evening, everyone. I hope y'all have been enjoying the event so far. I know I have. Tonight I've prepared for you 4 poems, and this first one, as was just mentioned, is what I submitted to the Corrington Creative Writing Contest last year, and was surprised to end up winning. It is the reason I'm here now, and I'm so grateful to be up here. This poem is about spring, and when I tell people that, they give me a weird look, because why would anybody like spring in Louisiana? But I do, and often I find that there is more than just the season at play when I decide that it is my favorite. This is when I tell people my favorite season is spring. When I tell people my favorite season is spring, they tell me they prefer autumn, for its cooler weather, of course. What they forget when lecturing about how many layers you can put on, but there are only so many you can take off, I would peel this skin off if I could. Temperature is not all there is to the argument. I still don't know how to explain that cold seeps under my skin and settles. This weight on top of heavy bones I already struggle to carry, and more layers on top don't make the ache go away. I fear I'll never be warm again during the fall. Spring is my reminder. Yes, it is heat and flowers and new life also, but primarily, spring is my reminder. Sun shines strongly against my face. My body no longer aches, listing just this side of too warm, can finally breathe without ice clinging to my throat. I begin to feel whole again. Even in this fleeting moment, I can have peace of mind and body. I can remember everything really will be okay. This second poem came about as I was getting onto the Jackson third floor elevator, and I looked to my left, and the conference room door, for no reason at all, opened, and I made eye contact with somebody inside, and we stared at each other. And then I got on the elevator, and both our doors closed, and I could not stop thinking about weird little moments like that. This is happenstance happens. Still, I ready ajar. So strange, a moment caught, fireflies in a jar. Is it truly contained? This news unintended from passing conversation, that conference noticed through the cracked door, those smiles shared between parting friends, partners, family, strangers. These queer instances I am not a part of and may never be, may never even gain context for. Light protrudes from within, it seeps through my hold. This next poem is about grief, and this idea that you always expect to have more time with someone. Despite its overarching theme, I did have a lot of fun pushing these visceral senses and images within it. So for you, I have inevitable could have meant later. An apple does not know it will be consumed. Its skin peeled, strip by strip, cut up into slices and baked in intense heat to make a sweet pie. An apple grows without content, without knowing death, and is content. Hansel and Gretel did not know they would be consumed, but they might have guessed. Slowly fattened on sweets, they were boiled alive in that audacious cauldron till meat practically dripped off their bones. Still, they must follow the witch for chance fortune. You had to have known you would be consumed. Smoke wilting your lungs would have done the trick, but you found a fire that burned you out sooner than even that could. At some point, it is choice. I hope you peace now. I have 5 younger brothers and 1 older brother, and I love them all so very much. And I was sitting and thinking about them and the time that we had and both have not had together, and how proud I am of all of them, and how much I care for all of them. And y'all, I started crying with the joy I hold for my younger brothers. And I knew that I had to write about it. So for this final poem, I have for you short letters to give my younger brothers when they are no longer young. Note: when my mind was trying to swallow itself, I looked out the window, the 2 of you in the backyard, kicking around a soccer ball, connecting. Everything else became still. Note: when we went on our first full family trip, our only older brother now with us, I was the one to notice you missing, the one to take off running back to the spot I knew you'd be, the one to find you. I passed a woman later that week, screaming about her own missing child as 2 others clung to her arms, too young to do anything but witness. Note: when I am home with you, I find myself constantly learning, aspiring to be like you, admiring just how talented you are, and all I can feel is proud. Note: when you get to watch someone grow, moving through the years as you did, it's not quite the same as a parent's, but it is a bond that took me too long to realize I would do anything for. I hope you are learning from my mistakes. I hope you don't end up with what I've got, and though I can admit to my moments of jealousy, I hope you get the best of this life. Note, when you stopped coming on the long drives to pick me up, I understood, but it pulled at my heart. You point out the obvious and it aches. It was never my choice to have my family split. I will never get enough time with any of you. Note, when you are my age or older, I hope, more than anything else, that you can forgive me. Although I am eldest, I was still just a kid who didn't realize the weight of responsibility was mine. And when I say certain things, that you hear the underlying thought. Don't do that, I love you. Have a good day, I love you. Be careful, I love you. Tell me about that, I love you. Over and over, I love you, I love you, I love you, I look forward to our family gatherings.
Okay, that was really amazing. I feel like we need to give them one more round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your work, and you really made Centenary proud, and me.
If you're a Centenary student and you feel inspired by what you hear tonight, we'd like to invite you to participate in 2 Corrington writing contests. Maybe you'll be opening for next year's Corrington recipient and have your name in the program.
Rachel, speaking of the programs, how amazing do they look?
They are gorgeous.
Our programs, go ahead and take a look at them. They are beautiful. Our programs and our invitations were designed by communications major Aubrey Salazar. Aubrey, are you here? Could you stand? Thank you, Aubrey. Aubrey is also mentored by art and communications professor Jessica Hawkins. Thank you, Professor Hawkins. I know you're here too in that beautiful blazer.
Aubrey drew inspiration from Ruffin's book, The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, which explores the lives of everyday people in New Orleans. Her images are dynamic and striking in honor of Ruffin's unforgettable characters. Thanks again, Aubrey, for sharing your work with us.
Well, folks, it's about that time. I am so excited to tell you about our honoree this evening. Maurice Carlos Ruffin is the author of the 2024 historical novel, The American Daughters. His previous works include the short story collection, The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, and the novel We Cast a Shadow. Ruffin is a professor of creative writing at Louisiana State University. He has also been a finalist for the Faulkner Award, the DUBLIN Literary Award, and the Daytona Literary Peace Prize.
We're delighted to welcome Maurice into the legacy of the Corrington Award. His short story collection, The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, was a finalist for the Ernest J. Gaines Award. You might recognize Ernest J. Gaines' name as he was also a Louisiana writer, and his novel, A Lesson Before Dying, won the National Book Critics Circle Award in 1993. It was also adapted to a film starring Don Cheadle, Mekhi Phifer, and Cecily Tyson. A bit of Corrington history, Gaines was the second recipient of the Corrington Award in 1992. And what a delight it will be someday to welcome Corrington winners inspired by your work, Maurice.
Speaking of writers inspired by Maurice, this year all first-year students are reading The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You. Our first-year seminar course, called Credo, which is Latin for I Believe, focuses on helping students develop as thinkers, readers, and writers. This course also highlights civic and community engagement. Maurice's stories offer important perspectives on identity and the way we define ourselves and others. They encourage students to think about precision in language and how their beliefs are formed using definitions and categorizations that they've inherited from others. Maurice's characters come alive, in part because he pays such close attention to voice. and our students are using his collection as a mentor text to find their own voices.
Several other centenary groups are sponsoring common reads of Maurice's work this fall. 2 book clubs have formed on campus to read We Cast a Shadow and The American Daughters. And the annual community study series sponsored by the Centenary Muses, who are here tonight, is also reading some of Maurice's work. I admire Maurice because he trusts readers enough to challenge them. A through line across his work is that he draws attention to the world as it is and as it could be, for better or worse. What currents run just below the surface of our most ordinary and mundane interactions? What awaits us if we meander blindly down well-cut paths, too busy or lazy to imagine alternatives? We Cast a Shadow, which I've been reading with other members of the book club, is set in a near future city in the American South, not too different from our Shreveport, Louisiana. I appreciate the conversations that the book has inspired us to have about ourselves, our communities, and our futures.
Maurice's short story collection, The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, begins with the epigraph, "In New Orleans, culture doesn't come down from on high. It bubbles up from the street." We invite the community to use these stories as an opportunity to reflect on the relationships to the places they occupy and the connections they make in these spaces. I am teaching this book right now, and I have already seen my students find kinship in the text and light up when they find connection with a character. We are excited for our students, colleagues, and community to learn firsthand from Maurice how developing a writing and thinking practice can help us explore who we are and who we want to be.
So at this time, I'd like to invite both our honoree and Dr. Jefferson Hendricks, Chair of English, to the stage.
The Corrington Award takes the form of a bronze medal designed by internationally exhibited Louisiana sculptor Clyde Connell. A presentation box, handmade by Centenary faculty, accompanies the medal.
All right, so on behalf of the students and faculty of Centenary College of Louisiana, it is our honor to present Maurice Carlos Ruffin with the 34th John William Corrington Award for Literary Excellence.
Congratulations, Maurice. The stage is yours.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing out there? I gotta say, y'all have way too much style here. Like, y'all got some swag. What do y'all say now, Riz? You got Riz? Is that what it is? No, thank you to the president. Thank you to the president, to the provost, to the department, to all the students. So much talent here. It's really quite humbling. So I guess on that note, what am I gonna do tonight? Serious question. How many of y'all went down to New Orleans to see Taylor Swift? I see like 2 hands. It's okay. She was good, right? She was good, right? So I feel like what I'll do tonight is, I know we have a Q&A coming up, so I'm gonna do a bit of a selection. Okay, when I say writers, musicians, painters, dancers, people that make clothing, in other words, creative people, who out there is a creative person? Raise your hand if you're a creative person. All right. Okay, that's most of the audience. All right. I'm a former corporate lawyer. I went to the University of New Orleans and way back in the Stone Age, and I'm a former corporate lawyer. So I practiced law for like 16 years. And then I got tired of not being creative, and I changed my whole life around. And so in the process of doing that, I wrote 3 books in the past 5 years that came out. The first one was We Cast a Shadow, came out in 2019. The second one was The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, that came out in 2021. And the third one was The American Daughters. And that came out this year. And then last month, they did a British version of it. It's the British version of it, right? Isn't that pretty cool? Those are Brits. Crikey, they don't say that. They don't say crikey. But I feel like what I should do tonight is I'm gonna read 2 short pieces. Well, maybe 3, who knows, we'll see. See how the mood strikes us. You may not have noticed this, but there's an election going on right now. It's getting a little wild out there. Yes, sir. But we should remember that we are one people here in this country. Yes. We should do our best to come together. But not in the spirit of that, I'm gonna read a bit of revenge. So this book that I put out this year, this is The American Daughters, and the setup is pretty simple. Basically, there's a mother-daughter team that's brought to New Orleans in 1844, and they're enslaved, and they decide that they're tired of being enslaved, so they try to escape to the swamps, and they're being chased by some hunters, some guys who work for the owners of certain enslaved people. So I'm just going to start off with this and see where it goes. And this is on page 54. Got a copy of it. All right. What was that? I hear it too, Mama. Audie whispered. It's just one of him, Sunit said through clenched teeth. I was fine to let him be. But he didn't follow us this far. He up to no good. And as if being called into being, a white man in muddy pantaloons walked past them in the swamp. Say nothing, Sunit said to her daughter. Stay here. Audie saw that same firmness in her mother's eyes. From the night, she waited for Dumarche with a knife in her hand. But this time she wasn't waiting on whether to follow through. Sunit stood up and walked onto the path behind that man. And when Sunit was within arm's length, Audie saw her mother produce the short knife, and the sight caused Audie's mouth to fly open. Audie's surprise manifested in a small escaped sound, and the man wheeled around and threw a punch that seemed to go through Sunit's face. Sunit and the man struggled, arm in arm, body over body, first standing and then on the ground. The man's paleness flashed in the dusk, his body, his belly like that of a fish, and he and Sunit tussled until he got his arm around her neck. Birds flew wild in the canopy, and he just grunted and pulled his arm tighter around her neck. Audie threw herself at the man. The man knocked her backwards, with no effort at all. What to do, Mama, she yelled. What to do? Sunit said nothing, but her eyes sprang open. Sunit grunted. Audie was unsure what her mother had said, but she saw Sunit glancing off to the side. And there on the black dirt, the edge of an object twinkling like a jewel, Sunit's short knife. And all of a sudden, Audie could hear her mother's garbled language. His stomach. Go for his stomach. Audie brought the knife down, but the blade glanced away, merely tearing his shirt, and then she brought it down again. Suddenly, the warmth of blood about her hands, the same smell as a butcher, and the man yelled out, God! Audie dropped the knife. Sunit rolled free and sat on her behind, holding her own throat. Audie ran to her mother and hugged her. Thank you. Sunit was gasping. Her voice was raspy as she held Audie close. Thank you, daughter. And that man, in the muddy pantaloons, for his part, he spoke. But Adi didn't understand what he said and didn't care to understand what he had said. And shortly thereafter, the man was silent forevermore. Thank you. So that's from the novel, The American Daughters. I do like writing short stuff too, so I'm gonna read maybe a couple really short things from, this is the collection of short stories. And my whole project has really been like trying to tell stories that don't get told typically. Even with American Daughters, which is like about quote unquote enslaved people, you get like 12 Years a Slave, which is like one point of view. You get maybe Django Unchained or Roots, but I'd never seen something like that. With like just like two black women in the past kind of winning for a change. You know, you kind of expect certain things from those kind of stories. And I love to like upend those expectations and see where I could take it. So, so as I mentioned already, I'm a former corporate lawyer. You know, life can be very circuitous. And I decided to stop being a practicing lawyer because I was kind of getting bored. And I was kind of wondering like, what could I do with my skills to like feed my community, you know, in terms of art. As a corporate lawyer, you make a lot of money. But you do a lot of bad stuff sometimes. One of the cases I had was for an unnamed oil company named Shell. And Shell had this case. I was one of the lawyers, one of like many lawyers involved in the case, where they had been sued for poisoning a community on the West Bank of New Orleans. And so this had gone on for decades, this lawsuit, because one thing that defense lawyers are good at is like delaying things forever, as long as possible. So people were dying off, you know, time was passing. And finally, Shell decided to go ahead and settle the case. This whole community of like, say, 3,000 people in the West Bank, to settle the case, there's a connection there. So Taylor Swift, by Friday, her tickets were down to $900, very cheap, you know, not too bad. The people in this case, now 15 years ago, they got paid $700 per person for like a lifetime of cancer and pain. And my job as a young lawyer was to go to a high school, and people were lined up in the auditorium with a bunch of other, you know, people and lawyers and stuff. And they would come to me and they would give me their ID, and I would notarize it and like sign it, and then they would go off and get their check or whatever. One of the guys walked up, and I'll never forget his name. His name was Mercury Forges. And sometimes you don't know where inspiration comes from. The guy didn't explain his life story. I didn't talk to him. I just kind of did my duty. I was doing my job. But that name Mercury Forges stuck. So I made a story in my collection that's called Mercury Forges. And it's blink and you miss it. It's only like 2 pages long. But the setup is pretty simple. Basically, this is the day after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, right next to the Superdome. If you were in New Orleans at that time, 20 years ago, I know most of you probably were like 1 year old or whatever, but if you were there, you would hear music like this playing.
That's you with that badass Benz. That's you that can't keep old ladies and you keep fucking up here.
I did have a badass Benz once. It's a long time ago. Okay, Mercury Forges. My job was to make sure Mercury Forges didn't escape. He was a stocky black guy in for drugs and guns. And he'd gotten out of OPP twice. And no one knew how he did it. The funny thing about Mercury is he got captured within 2 blocks of the prison both times. I get turned around when I'm out there. Dep Benoit, Mercury said once, but I'll get free for good, just you wait. When the hurricane hit and flooded everything, we brought the inmates down to the Broad Street overpass, and I wasn't too panicked because my family was safe by that point. But wouldn't you know it, Mercury snuck away as soon as I turned my back on him. He was in the P-row about 5 blocks away, bobbing like an apple. I was in Homer 2 weeks ago when I said P-row. I'm like, I ain't got to explain what a P-row is to Homer. But I ran across the overpass and climbed down the scaffolding to his boat, which I grabbed. We hadn't cuffed any of the inmates, you see, because it'd be too hard to get those guys back and forth with all the water and flooding and such. Mercury, where do you think you're going? I asked. And I had a hand on my sidearm in case he tried something. I got to find Humanity Street, he said. That's where my pops lives. Now, I knew his dad. His dad was a good guy who brought food plates to the deputies over at the prison. I liked his dad, but that shouldn't have mattered at the moment. I can't really tell you why I didn't make Mercury bring us back immediately to the detention area. And after a while, we floated up to a yellow house with flood water to the awning. And Mercury yanked the metal pole from the water and broke through the attic window, and he climbed in to that house. And there was a shuffling from inside that attic, and I wondered if I should go in after him, because maybe this is a big part of his getaway plan. But soon Mercury grunted out the window and pulled his father's body out, wrapped in a heavy blanket. You see, the old man hadn't had a chance. Bring us back, Mercury. And that's what I did. Thank you. And I'll do one more quick piece. I write poetry sometimes. My theory of the case on like being an artist is that, well, being a person, is that either you have mommy issues or daddy issues. Most of us got both of them at the same time. So there's like a lot of mommy, oh, by the way, I really want to give a huge shout out both to Kay for the wonderful poetry, wonderful job there, so impressive and so moving, and also to the players who performed the piece earlier. I really appreciated that. It's like hearing your own voice, like it was beautiful, but I was like, oh, I wrote that. It was beautiful, but wonderful job. But you saw in that piece earlier, like that lady, who's like paying her son $5 per bottle. Like my mom is in there a little bit, So in a lot of these pieces, my dad is in here. And this particular piece is a poem called Spinning. And I'll just read this quick poem. And being from the South, being from Louisiana, being from New Orleans, there's always music in there somewhere, always. A little dramatic sip of water right quick. Spinning. 1. After my dad died, I bore his body from room to room. The cancer had flayed his flesh. I was shocked by his heaviness. His body pulled the cords of my back to their conclusions. He put a violin in my hands when I was small, and once I turned a peg as the note rose higher and higher until the E snapped against my arm, a caterpillar-shaped welt rising. 2. I refused my father just once. He asked me to gift him a pack of cigarettes. Grandmother has had a heart attack alone in the night. Arteries hardened by Philip Morris. A surgeon slices my mother's breast to save her from cells gone to riot, chewing their way out of her body. I say, Father, I'll do this for you, but once. Love is. 3. Mama cries for years after his death. His leaving ends our circling. Don't you miss him, son? The green wedge of a Salem's pack winks from her lap. After I filled my car's tank, the needle rises from E to F. Every cell Mama's body balloon-filled with heavy water. In my daydreams, she inhales. Smoke nettles her lungs, then calls his true name. 0. 1982. I'm 4. Dad takes the wheel of a pickup truck he borrowed from work without permission, reaches over to clip me into the passenger seat, throws the transmission into drive, lights off down the ice-black road of Veterans Highway, watches my laughter at the witch's cackle of wind flowing through the cabin, misses his turn at Lafreniere Park, turns too fast, spins us at the intersection, 2 infants on the back of a mermaid, the fishtail whipping in the drizzle-made ponds, he reaching over to pin me in place as I think this will always be. Thank you. All right, so I guess we're doing like a Q&A type thing now. Is that the plan? Yes.
one more round of applause for Maurice Carlos Ruffin.
We are fortunate enough to have some time to ask Maurice a few questions about his work. So I think Rachel and Maurice are going to have a seat over here. You've got an extra mic, right? There we go. I'm going to grab this mic, and myself and Dr. Blasi are going to go through the aisles. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll come to you.
I feel like we're on Between Two Ferns. You know? I think we actually might be between two ferns. Keep the ferns over. Who has a question?
I see hands over there.
So, what influenced your work? You know, what motivated you?
What's your name?
Okay, sorry, everybody call me KK.
Okay, thanks for that. What influenced my work? So a bunch of y'all raised your hands earlier when I said like who's creative in this house. And I think the real answer for most people is that you're influenced by the place that made you and what you love. You know, a lot of times people are trying to be like so different. Like let's just say you're from the South and you decide you only write like novels about people in New York City. You could do that. But people be like, that's not real. They can sense it. There's something that's fake about that, you know? The fact of the matter is that most of us are influenced by like our childhoods, and the people that raised us, our mothers and fathers, grandparents, or other people that took care of us. And those stories kind of live within us, so let them out of our presence. So many of my stories are about children. Probably half of them are, including the novel, The American Daughters. Even the first book, I mean, the main character is not the narrator, it's this kid named Nigel. So I think for me, it's just like anybody else. You see things, you think about it, you ponder it, you wonder why it is how it is. And then also what happens is, you start out young, you don't know much of anything. I'm not trying to offend any people under the age of like 30 here, but like, you know, like you just don't know. And then this really weird thing happens. The world, it comes to view clearer and clearer and clearer. And all of a sudden you begin to feel guilty because all those adults who are gone, they were saying some really smart stuff to you, but you can't ask any more questions. I mean, I don't want a time machine to like, you know, kill Hitler. I mean, that'd be nice, but that's not. Give me a time machine to talk to my great-grandparents who were alive when I was like 3 years old. And it said, what was it like, you know, like in 1930 when you were kids? You know, what was that like, you know? And I imagine people, you know, here who have some gray hair, like being able to ask those elders, like, what were their lives like? There's so much beauty in the past, and yet at a certain point, by the time you're that wise, you're like, you can't do it anymore. So for me, a lot of it's like trying to recover the past and trying to understand where I came from and who took care of me and tell their stories as much as possible. And understanding that being from the South is we all are, well, most of us from the South, I say. Although somebody's from Ohio, I think, over here.
It's not on purpose, I'm sorry.
Not on purpose, yeah. No, it's okay,
I didn't
it's okay.
choose this life.
But, you know, like the South gets like so much BS from like other parts of the country. When, like without the South, there's like no rock and roll. You know, there's no gospel, there's no country. There's no like savory food. It's just like all bagels. It's a very sad country out the South. And so, being able to embrace our stories, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the special, and being able to tell those things forward, to me is a great privilege. And I'm very, you know, proud of my heritage, all of our heritage. And it's really special. The people come here for a reason to the South. So we're still ourselves. You know, we're not Walmart yet in the South, even though it comes to the South. Anyway, yeah. Great question, Kenny. Thank you for that. So many hands.
I just want to say I'm a little offended that you said people who are under 30 don't know anything, 'cause I'm personally offended by
I
that.
thought you were 40. Wisdom-wise, not. I want to move on. You what did.
My name is Jasper, and I'm going to bounce off KK's question just a little bit. In American Daughters, the character of Alabama really interested me, so I want to know what was your inspiration for Alabama specifically?
Jasper? Yes. Jasper. Thank you, Jasper. Wonderful question. So in the book, so you have the main character, who's like a sort of point of view character. She's this young girl brought from the country, like say Lafayette area, to the city where she had been on the plantation. Now she's in the city of New Orleans, and she's like disoriented, you know, because when you think about that time period and the sort of black-white divide, people will often say, oh, well, if it was a black person, they were enslaved, but New Orleans was unusual. New Orleans was one of the very few cities in America in which at least half of black people were free at that time. So if you teleport to 1850 New Orleans, black people had businesses and restaurants and hotels. So she gets there and she's like, just what is going on here? Meanwhile, her best friend is named Lenore. And Lenore's like not enslaved. She is like from this really wealthy family. Her dad like owns a shipping company. She like dresses, like imagine like Bridgerton. She looks kind of like that, like really nice, the dresses and the hair is up, makeup did, hair did, that kind of thing. And then there's Alabama, who's like in between both of those characters. Like she looks like she's all together, but she escaped from a place over in Mississippi and made her way to Louisiana. But in my mind, I kept seeing all these characters, and it's what. Rachel, who are some of your favorite like feminist heroes? Like who do you love?
Oh, let's see. I love Avery Rich. I love Audre Lorde.
Oh my goodness, fantastic. So my favorite heroes, you know this. I'm a very basic person. For those who don't know who that is, but that's the Adventures team. And I'm writing the book, and this is why, like, you know, if you try and explain how work works, people think you're a little insane. But there's always a little madness in everything. So in my mind, all these lady characters in the book, Audie, the little girl, her mama Sanique, who you saw in the piece I read, Alabama, there's like 5 other ones who are there. To me, it's like my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my cousin, my sweet auntie, my mean auntie, is like these characters, but like nailed it with the Avengers, you know? And so they're like, you know, being oppressed to a certain extent. They're like, no, we're not gonna take this line, now we're gonna fight back. So these characters have like all these sort of mixed in bits and pieces. Alabama in particular, to answer your question, Jasmine. In my mind, I'm trying to write her, and this is gonna sound insane, but it's true. In my mind, she sounds like, what if you were to mix like Toni Morrison and Dolly Parton into one character? She's like very flip and like she's very fast, like she's quick on her feet like that, she's cracking jokes constantly. And I love this Dolly Parton. Like, who doesn't like Dolly Parton? If you don't like Dolly Parton, something's wrong with you. And so that's very much part of the process, trying to figure out like who the actual voice is and who's the vixen. Like you go to those ice cream places, they take the ice cream, put like some chocolate and peanut butter in it. It's the exact same process in the writing. So it's all these sort of mixtures of characters.
So my name's Shug.
Like Suge Knight?
Yes. But my question was, how did being a corporate lawyer for 16 years influence your writing? I work at a law firm, so I'm just...
Cool. Shug, like Suge Knight, Shug Avery, Sugar Bear. So how did being a corporate lawyer influence things? We are fortunate to live in this time period. Scholars who really study things like poverty and things like crime have noted that for the most part, those things have gotten better. Now we're paying more attention, so a lot of things look a lot worse than they did a long time ago. But the fact of the matter is, you were much more likely to like starve 100 years ago in this country than today. You know, and there are places around the world where there's still a lot of rampant starvation stuff. So a lot of us, I think, in this society that is so successful, like on a human scale, you know, people have money, they have means, they have government support. We tend to get very complacent, and so in this sort of late capitalist society, you can just be like, I'm just gonna do anything. I don't care what I do, and we don't care about the effect we have on our communities. And so again, you could be a corporate lawyer, not doing the best stuff for your community. You could be a doctor who's like, you bring your patient in and have like kind of a 10-minute talk, and you kick them out as fast as possible. Like you don't like touch them, or like like ask them how they really are as a person, those kinds of things. So I think being a corporate lawyer, I saw that side of it, and I saw how it was so business oriented. Being a corporate lawyer allowed me to see my community from top to bottom. There's a tradition in detective novels where like the detective can like see like the sort of pits of society, the criminal world, like the sort of highfalutin fancy, world. And being a lawyer, I saw all of that. Like I saw, for example, I remember sitting in my office one day, and I wondered why it was that the schools in New Orleans were so segregated. In New Orleans, the public schools are about 90% black. And the private schools are like 30%, like 30 to 40% black. And my colleague in the next office, she was talking to one of her buddies, and she was saying, well, I'm gonna go sign my, she was white, she was a friend. I'm gonna sign my kid up for school today, Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock. I'm gonna leave the office, go to the school, and take 3 hours to fill out these papers to get my kid in this fancy private school. Now, if you're somebody with no means, which is a lot of African Americans in the city, you can't like leave your job at a hotel or like at, you know, a restaurant for 3 hours to go take care of your child. And so therefore you sort of funnel into certain systems. So being in that space, I kept seeing how things can be very systemic. Nobody's like trying to do that on purpose, but the sort of system is making things go that way. And so then I got kind of angry, because then I realized that you can only see it from that angle, you know. And often outsiders are the best describers of communities. There was a Frenchman named de Tocqueville who came to New Orleans like 200 years ago, and he saw all these things that were kind of invisible to people who were local. And I think that being an artist is being an outsider. You know, if you're too fat and happy as an artist, you're on the wrong side of things, because you're just like adding to the devastation. I think it's the job of an artist to be trying to find those shadow places and trying to expose those things. Because I believe that everybody is doing the best that they can do. And when you know how these things work, you go, oh, that's not really fair. And we could make this better for these ladies to go get their kids out to the good school as opposed to, you know, going to other places. So being a lawyer gave me some vision. And lastly, it gave me some gumption. You know, like I think that being a lawyer makes you more of a fighter. My wife is also a lawyer. By high school, you know, we married each other, you know, like 20 years old. And she's a very tough person. And I would watch her like navigate through the world. I'm like, I should be like that. She's a born lawyer. I wasn't a born lawyer. And so now when I see challenges, I don't accept the challenge. I don't like taking no for an answer. If I think I'm doing the right thing, I will keep on fighting and fighting and fighting to get to that yes. And then I will use the yes to something really cool and great. And then the last lesson at that point is the craft part. As an early young writer, my writing was very fuzzy and very like amorphous and not very interesting. And law makes you sort of focus on like structure and how structure works. So I'm like a structure master. I'm like a master of structure. I can like do, all right, this story needs this container. This story needs this point of view. And I write it out and it feels really tight. And I just go ahead with it and do it. So you know, there's no wrong choices. But I think for me, being a lawyer was one of my best choices ever. I don't regret it at all. And I need that to be the person I am right now. I couldn't be this writer without being that lawyer first and foremost. So thank you, Shirley.
I think we've got time for 2 more questions. I'll do that here.
I'm just sitting here sweating Rachel's amazing blazer. Look at this blazer. What is that? That is beautiful.
I feel like we need to switch though. I love this color on. Let's do it at the reception. We'll switch.
All be the same color on too. It's sort of burnt, you know, color.
I think that you knows better with Dr. Johnson's skin tone personally. So you stay where you are. Okay, I'm Jo, and I read a lot of the stories, and the ones who don't say they love you. And a lot of them end in sort of non-endings. Don't really resolve the conflict that we see. And I was wondering if that, I imagine it is purposeful, and my question is why? Like, why choose to non-end your stories?
Yeah, the ambiguous endings. Thank you, Joe, for that question. I appreciate it. I mean, I would say to that every one of us who are creative, we have a certain aesthetic. We kind of can't control it. And so the sort of bow tie in, like wrapping the gift up with a little bow, and it's kind of everything spelled out, and all the characters will end up in certain places. I can do that sometimes, but it feels more like life, that because the character's going to live past the story, I want you to be thinking about them. What happens next with that character? So for me, I just feel like a lot of the times when I'm making these sort of open endings, it just feels more like life. It feels more natural. It feels more realistic, you know. And also, I love allowing the reader to bring their own ideas to a story. So you get to the end, you go, what happens next? I don't know. I can't tell you, but you can guess for yourself what's the next scene going to be in that story. So it's a choice that I make consciously to answer your question, and I find it quite pleasurable. And I love open endings. I mean, even Barbie had open endings. She goes to the doctor, to the gynecologist. Y'all saw that, right? That's not Barbie, right? She goes to the gynecologist. Now what? It's a great question. I'll think about it a year later. Thank you for that.
This is going to be our last question of the night.
Hello, my name's Bree, and I read in your New York Times interview your list of recommendations of like stuff that really inspired you, such as A List Before Dying and Tennessee Williams' A Strict Desire. How would you say is the best way to switch from just consuming Southern literature to writing it and transitioning a lot of your inspirations into your own writing.
What's your name?
Sir?
Name?
Bree.
Bree, thanks for the question. So the question being, so how do you switch from being a reader to being a writer? I think it's pretty simple. So I remember a long time ago when I was like y'all age, well, students age. Not Jesse. Not Jesse. I'm not there yet. I'll get there.
Nobody's Jesse.
So many age jokes. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm in the mood tonight. But there you go. I worked for a company that no longer exists. It was called Circuit City. They sold appliances. They sold TVs and stereos, that kind of thing. And I worked in like customer service, I worked in audio, I worked in other areas of places. Remember one night there was like a basketball game. This is so long ago. It was like Shaq and like Kobe on the same team. This is that many years ago, right? And like watching the game, like I shouldn't have worked, but I was watching the game. And there was an older guy named Charlie Burke. Never forget this guy. He's probably like in his 50s. I think he's like 100 years old back then, I was 20 or whatever. I'm like, hey, Mr. Burke, you like watching the game tonight? He's like, I don't watch the games. I'm like, why don't you watch the games? Because I came here as part of my life to make money, to make my life better. I don't have time to play around and watch a game. I'm like, he's so serious. What I realized what he was saying is there's having an employee attitude and an employer attitude. There's having a consumer attitude, there's having a maker attitude. And for me, I've been on this journey for the past 20 years of going from one side to the other side. And so when I read stories as a consumer, I read with a lazy guy. Like I read a story and kind of go, well, I kind of get this, and close the book and go to the next story. And then at some point, I found myself just taking notes in the margins. Like, why did she say that? Why is this weird thing happening in the story? And so finally, I realized that, oh, I'll read a story and I'll go, I get this, I get that. And like my brain is speeding up almost. And after a certain point, you're running so fast along the surface of the earth, you reach escape velocity. You know what that is? Escape velocity is when you go so fast you leave gravity. You start flying. And as a creator, that's when you change. You're not just like a layperson, you're a creator. And I think a lot of like actors and musicians and singers have described similar stories. They were like trying to be whatever they were, Heath Ledger or Janis Joplin or I don't know, Angela Bassett. And it sort of clicks, and you're on the other side of this sort of veil. When that happens, if you recognize it, that's where the greatness is. And so to be a reader of Southern literature was like, being a kid, like reading, Mr. Gaines' work, for example, like reading Anne Rice, wonderful work, and kind of like not knowing what they were doing. And then realizing that they were all in their own ways describing their own communities. And me going, well, I can describe my life, my community. I'm from a weird place called New Orleans East. Like, it never appears in books, doesn't appear on TV. That's my home area. I grew up in New Orleans East, which is like 95% African American, 85% black, 15% Vietnamese. A very unusual area. And yet that's my people, that's my thing. So once I figured out that I can use my skills to tell those stories, it changed my whole life. And so as a result of that, I never get distracted for too long. Like I don't write every single day. I'm not that kind of a writer. But I don't like really have like a lot of writer's block. Like I'll like not wait for a week and a half, no big deal, even a month sometimes. And I'll go, well, whose story do I need to tell right now? Well, my grandfather's story. I'm gonna start writing that story, and it's gonna get done by a certain point until I feel that it's good enough, and I'll write it and wrap it up and publish it. And so it's just a matter of like, I'll just say in summation, I do a newsletter called Sitting in Silence on Substack. And I talk a lot about like motivation for writing and reasons for creating your own artwork. And what I'll just say is that if you are a truly motivated artist, if you're obsessed with an idea, you're like a dog on a bone, you can't let go of that idea until it's complete. And that attitude is why you still have people reading Toni Morrison, after she died, or going to a Shakespeare play, 500 years later, or reading Ovid, or going to the play, 2,000 years later, or reading Sappho, 2,500 years later, or reading Hedwana, 2,700 years later. You put so much of your soul into the work describing community that it lasts forever. And there's very few things in the world that's going to last forever. All those little myths, Rapunzel and those kind of things, somebody wrote those stories. You lost their names, you don't know where they came from, but they wrote those stories. And to me, that's a magical thing to be a part of, is a storyteller. So thank you for that. Thank y'all so much.